where you would use oils. Oils are particularly beautiful on cherry and mahogany and walnut. Where you have a beautiful grain, you really want to use an oil because it really enhances the grain. So I have an example of a piece of mahogany here that this is raw, and this has one coat of finishing oil, just one, and you really need 3, but we're going to apply some now, so I wanted you to just kind of see that. And what this does is it warms up the mahogany and really enhances the grain, and it's just supreme. So if I had a beautiful piece of mahogany or a beautiful piece of walnut, I may not need to stain it, I can, but I will rest in the oil. So it will, they call it mellowing or patinating, it will. Linseed oil yellows the most. As you go up the scale of refinement, it yellows less and less. The other thing though with teak oil is there is an amber teak oil. So you can buy teak oil that has a color imparted in it. And you would use a colored oil if you had maybe a kind of a faded wood or wood that you want to kind of lighten up a bit. Curly maple. Oil would be oil or wax, because that is like a little different grain. I guess it would also depend on the piece. Is it like, some tissue grain? Is it, you just kind of have to think of what the piece is. But curly maple, yeah, oil would be nice. And that's a really beautiful wood. What I wanted to show you here is, and I want to pass this around because this is an error that people make. We're going to apply the finishing oil, and I'm going to show you how to apply it, and then I want you to see what not to do. With this piece, I've applied some finishing oil, and when you read this article, the article is amazing. It's very clear. It's 2 pages. You lather, you kind of drench your surface with oil, and you're going to let it sit there about 10 or 15 minutes. The wood will absorb as much as it needs. Then you're going to wipe it away. With oil, so you kind of have to babysit them, and you're going to need to keep wiping them. If you don't, every few hours, if you don't wipe them back, you're going to get what we have here. And this is really bad. And you're going to see some little spots here, and you're going to feel them, and it's not smooth. I can take it down with steel wool, but ideally, this needed to be wiped better. So I just look for that. Yes. Almost. That's what the guy wrote in the article. You really have to base it. By the 3rd time you wipe back, you've got most of it. Yes, you're going to come back because what happened within 2 hours of me wiping that surface, you'll see the bleed back there.
So you don't wipe
a cloth, just again a lint-free kind of cloth, right? And in between your coats, you're going to seal wool because you're going to cut down your nubs, and then you're going to come back the next day and put on more. And you want to build up your finishing oil at least 3 coats, and that will really protect your wood. What I have here, which is what this article is about, is a product called finishing oil. This is the one thing I'm going to kind of mention straight about later on, is that there's, Hope's tongue oil, and that's all fine, and all tongue oil is 24-hour dry time. What this product is tongue oil with a resin dryer. So your dry time here is 4 hours, as opposed to 24. And that's resin dryer, and so you have a 4-hour dry time, which is attractive if you're in a finishing rush. So this one you just see kind of, if you guys can see what it looks like. And this is a nice easy application in that you just get yourself a good lacquer brush, and we're going to kind of flood the surface, and we're going to let it sit on top for about 10 or 15 minutes. The wood is going to absorb as much as it needs. And now we can't do anything with this for 24 hours, but I just kind of wanted you to see the application process. Now, what the article goes on to say, which is really what will really take your finish to the higher level, is you get a very fine grit sandpaper, maybe 320 or something, and you're going to make a little slurry with it. So what I would do right now, which I didn't bring, is a fine grit sandpaper, and just start running with the grain. And what I'm going to do is I'm creating a little kind of sawdust, a little bit of oil, and the heat and the friction is making the oil penetrate into the water. First, second, it can be on all coats. Yeah. At least, I think it says in the article, at least 300. 320. Yeah, it says it in the article. But I'm sorry I didn't bring it, but you would really just, you don't have to do that. You can leave this just as is. But I'm not going to touch this now, and we'll start. What? What? I read it wrong?
$6 piece of sandpaper.
Okay, so with the grain, what I'm doing here is I'm kind of creating a slurry. Now the heat is what is allowing this oil to really penetrate. And this is really what's going to kind of make your finish stand apart from just the standard spray finish. And again, the wood is only going to absorb what it needs, so I'm still going to have a little bit on the surface.
You do that with any oil?
Yeah, you can have tongue oil, yeah, anyway. Tongue oil, teak oil, absolutely, because what you're doing is you're just allowing it to penetrate into the grain by the fact of creating some heat and some friction. So I can still see what I have on the surface. Tongue oil, teak oil, and nail oil. It's the beauty of refinement. Yeah, tongue oil smells, Danish oil is excellent, and then teak oil is, and teak oil, I don't know what the base is. Do you know what the base is? You need to find out what oil that is, because that could be linseed oil, it could be tongue oil. So you just need to find out what it is. It can be. I mean, linseed oil, you get a beautiful finish, and there's nothing wrong with it. You get a different finish. It's yellow. It's yellow. Yeah, tongue oil is beautiful. So, can you see how much has been absorbed? So now I still have to wipe this away, because if I don't, I'm going to get those little weed ones. So, I have a nice cotton cloth. Clean. Make sure it's clean. Do not use a dirty cloth, but this is all I want. So I'm just wiping away my excess. Now, if we were here longer, within an hour or two, you're going to see the bleed back come through. If our friend said, like, it's 2 in the morning and you don't want to wipe it down, steel wool in the morning will correct a little bit. What I would do anyway, even if I were fine, this is the next day, 24 hours have gone by, before I do any more finishing oil, steel wool. Because I've had little things fall on it, trying to press particles and so forth, and I want my surface to be as smooth as possible. So, if you want to kind of even feel that, it's just beautiful. Of course, it's wet, but it's neat. So, I don't want to keep you guys, so we'll just speed through this. Are we clear on oils? Is there any oil questions? So, shellac. Shellac is probably the most revered finish. It is the hardest finish to master, and it is very traditional. It is what we call French polish. What French polish is shellac flakes. I don't know if you've all worked with flakes. There are degrees of flakes. There's different colors, from garnet, which is the darkest, to super blonde, which is the most refined. It's been bleached. It's the most fragile because it's been so processed. This is a byproduct of a little bug. It comes from a bush in Thailand and Southeast India. These little black bugs, they're very tiny, and they mate on this bush, and they secrete this. And so then it's dried and it's processed, and there's different levels of shellac again. So what you're going to see in a store in a catalog is, this is a garnet shellac. Now this is pre-mixed, but we can pretend it's in flake form. And this is very dark. This will impart a very dark ruby brown color. Then there's something called sea black. If you've seen that or heard that, that is the least refined. That means you'll have little twigs in it, bug parts. It's like the least refined. That will be your cheapest. So sea black, then garnet, then you have there is something called button shellac. If you've seen that, I think Bob actually has some in there. It's big button form, and that gives you a nice brownish orange. There's orange shellac, which is the most popular, and then comes like the Primo Cadillac of shellacs is the blonde. And this means this imparts a very light color, a little bit of warmth, and it's again the most refined. So this will be your most expensive. Valens sells one called Super Blonde, and that is, just very light color. This is similar to that. It's called Special Pale. The difference here is that this is pre-mixed. So how you mix shellac is denatured alcohol. That's all. It dissolves. This is. You can't really see that these are big bunches. And you can see kind of the color, how dark the color is. So, have you heard of the cut, what cut the black is, and I don't know if I'm reading. So, in general, with the French polish, you need to have a 3 or 4 pound cut. And what that means is you want 3 or 4 pounds of flakes to every gallon of denatured alcohol. So you can have a 1 pound cut, it won't be as intense, it will be 1 pound of shellac to 1 gallon of denatured alcohol. So in general, for instance, these happen to be a 3 pound cut. But you really don't want to work with anything below that because you won't have enough shellac to really do a nice finish. This is an example of a very bad shellac application. What I want you to see is kind of what's called these fish eyes. And what's happened here is that this was applied too thickly. The dry time wasn't allowed for, and it wasn't cut back properly. So I just kind of want you to feel this and see this, and you don't want to do anything like that.
You should cut it back.
I'll show you. I'll do that. What you would do, you have a question of what do I mean by cutting back? What you do is, no matter what your finish is, whether it be oil or shellac, if that were my if I had done even my second application here, now my dry time on this is about 4 or 5 hours. I'm coming back to do my final step. Again, over those 4 or 5 hours, little dust has landed here. Maybe I have an imperfection, maybe even a brush hair or something like that. So what I do is I take my very fine steel wool. Again, the 4-aught will not scratch my surface, and I literally just with the grain, very lightly. This is what's called cutting back, and this is what you need to do in between lacquer steps, oil steps, shellac steps, any hard finish. You don't need to do it with wax because you're roughing your wax, but with anything else that's hard, that dries, you need to cut back. If I don't, then what happens is I keep applying product on top of this inconsistent finish, and it will show. It absolutely will show. So, very lightly. The heat, the bugs, yeah, but this stuff has bugs. It actually does. So, I'm going to show you a little bit about, has everyone's heard it? Am I right? This is at the end.
Okay. Quick question for you.
Yeah.
About when you're mixing your own shellac, do you have to have a scale to be able to mix it?
No, but you need to just know how much shellac you're using. Like, you can figure out a gallon of your alcohol because it'll be a gallon
you can do
container.
that part, but how do I get, let's say I figure out I need an eighth of a pound of shellac. How do I measure that without a scale?
Well, you really probably should. Maybe a little measuring cup if you have something in your kitchen or something, put it in a cup. You need to, you need an inflate form, right? What you'll be buying it in containers. Like Valens sells it in like a gallon container. This is about the smallest size you can get it in. This is 3 ounces. So whatever product you're buying will have a measurement on it.
So you can measure it volumetrically rather than literally by weight.
Oh yeah, yeah, you can do both. I guess I've always used like 1 pound bags, so I've never really had to think about that because we sell 1 pound bag, 5 pound bags, stuff like that. So, but in general, the cut is what's important, and people usually don't understand what that means. So you want to try to have 3 pounds of shellac to 1 gallon, and denatured alcohol is what you need. You can use alcohol, but regular alcohol, but denatured is a little better. Yeah, what happens is what I would do is I would have a big gallon container with my alcohol. I would pour this in. It will start to dissolve. You're going to stir it occasionally. Not that often, but you're going to stir. If you're in a rush, the more you stir, the more it will dissolve. But it will take a while. after, after it's dissolved, you have to strain it with cheesecloth. Very important. That's why this is so much easier. No, but you use cheesecloth and you want to strain it. So here's cheesecloth. Do you know what cheesecloth is? Looks like. Very important. So that is your final step. If you don't strain it, you will not have really much shellac. And if you're going to the trouble of doing that, strain it, because you're probably working on a piece of mahogany. You've got the expense of the shellac, which starts at like $16. It's not this size, but these bottles I think are $12. Yeah, and basically the only thing you have here is just convenience. It's exactly the same. The one thing you want to keep track of is the shelf life on something. So once this is open, it's about 6 months. So that's maybe a little bit of a step back. So you want to maybe buy a smaller bit, whereas you will never have a problem with this. What can happen with flakes though is blocking. I don't know if anyone experienced that. With heat and humidity, this will turn into a brick, and then it is very hard to dissolve, and you almost have to throw it out. So you just want to be careful of that. You want to watch for keeping your slate. So blocking is a problem. So this is it just has to be shaken really well. This in particular is the garnet, so this is a dark color. And this is a padding lacquer. And I just wanted to touch on this quickly. And here's how I'm going to do that. This is a little French polish handout. And making the pad is probably one of the hardest parts. And it's purely to the size of your hand. And you want it in a shape. In this book, I've been reading like many books. It's kind of where I learned a lot of stuff. This is a book from the Content Press. It's excellent. They're both under $20. This book in particular has a terrific article, chapter on French polishing, and it's worth just kind of taking a look at. And when I was at your show, this is the one thing that sold out, so I told you about this book. So, kind of show you a little bit, we talk about cotton wadding, it's often called a bag or a rubber, those are these terms. You can use something called cotton waste or cotton muslin. And then afterwards you want to wrap it in a very fine cotton cloth. So they're kind of showing the shape here. And here they're just filling the grain. And then the way you want to hold it, and it's really not in a ball shape, it's more in an oval shape. And this is the most important bit of it, because you need to get into the corners of whatever surface you're doing. So if your pan is round, you're not going to do that. And then you talk about loading the pan too much or too little. And then the motion you work in it. And this is really what takes so much skill to really build up. It takes years to master French polishing. If you like, I'm not a master. But what's most important is to the size of your palm. It has to be very comfortable in your palm. So I'm going to create a shape that is, it's important to kind of have a little top point. Because what I want to do is get into the corner of my surface. And if I round it, I'm going to miss a bit of it. So this is really what is very important. And again, the size, what is comfortable in your hand, and you want to keep it tight. This is my interior. I don't think this is good, but this is too small, but you would get really fine. This is cotton sheeting. This is actually very expensive. And you're going to wrap it. The key thing to this wrapping this pad is you do not want any edges on my exterior. You want it pulled tight. If I have any kind of a ridge above the end, I'm going to damage my shellac, and there's no getting back from that. Once you have an incorrect pass, it's down, the alcohol's evaporating, you cannot correct it. So you want to make sure that it's wrapped very tightly. Then there's a matter of loading your pad. And what you're going to do, you have to wear gloves at this step. You just get the message. What you're going to do, I'm not going to do it in this case, I'm going to brush it on, but what you do is you load your pad as much as you can. You want your interior muslin going to do is you kind of test it on your skin. You blot it first, and you make sure it's not too wet or too dry. If it is too dry, you will have drag marks, and again, there's no correcting it. If it's too wet, it will be a mess. So it's very important to keep it exactly well prepared. There's a good picture on that level how to do that. You're going to take your surface, and the key to French polishing is you never stop on your surface. The second your pad stops, you have a mark, and again, no correcting it. So you kind of swoop down on your wood and swoop up. And you always want to work like this. And you kind of start straight away, straight across, you make sure everything's covered. Then you're going to go in circles, and then figure eights. And again, when you get to the end, you swoop up. That's what's the most important thing. You just kind of do this, and I would do this 8 or 9 times, sometimes with one coat. Then you're going to let this dry, and then you're going to do this at least 3 or 4 times. Because what your shellac is doing is filling the grain. You're choosing a shellac. This is the hardest finish to apply, and it is probably the most beautiful. So this is, if you're going to go with shellac, you know what you're doing. You're working with a beautiful wood. You would never do this on a pine. But you really should. This is really ideal for mahogany. And you'll see this in all period furniture. If you go to any museums or fine auction or something like that, you can take a look at what the traditional French polish really look like. So the most important thing is to remember to keep your pad moving. And you're working in a particular motion. And then you just keep kind of, applying your product to your pad, and you can keep moving your pad around any way you want. The key is not to get any edges, because this will create terrible damage. Just to show you the color a little bit. I'm not doing this because this isn't really the right pad. I know another cotton, so it would work a little bit. You can, I don't recommend this, but you can brush this on. A good lacquer brush. And just kind of want you to see the color here. You keep your surface moving, and this will absorb immediately. And then you're going to let this dry. This dry time here is about 4 or 5 hours. You keep applying this until your surface is sticky. Then your surface is saturated, and then it will dry. So I would do this 3 or 4 times because it's absorbing into the wood. What I want to do is fill my grain. That's what's taking the longest time. So prior to this, you need to do a grain filler. There's water-based grain fillers. There are grain fillers that have mahogany pigment in it already, so you don't even have to use a neutral grain filler. And if you do go to the trouble of time using a grain filler, this step goes much faster. So you can kind of keep that in mind. I just don't have any grain filler outside of this show. They talk about it in that.
And you keep brushing till it's sticky.
Yeah.
That's one coat.
And that's one coat, right? And I would do this then I need about 3 applications. Now, when this dries, it's starting to get a little tacky.
How long does it take to dry?
About 4 hours. I've done this in my office. I've done this in like 2 hours. If I need to show someone something. What I do now is I cut back with my steel wool when it's dry. 4 hours from now, wherever I have any little imperfection on the surface, steel wool is very important at this point because I want a mirror finish at the end. I wanted to bring a piece of French polish to see if you see your reflection. That's when you're going to be doing it right. It's amazing.
So what you just did here, though, was shellac, but it's not a French polish.
No, well, no. Traditional French polish is the pad and the handle is
Well, what's the difference between the pad and all the elbow grease and just brushing it on?
It has to do with the way the alcohol evaporates. There's alcohol in here, and what the pad is doing is it's kind of moving your shellac around the surface, and your alcohol is evaporating at a different rate. You don't get nearly the same beauty or finish with the brush. It takes years to master. If you're in a fine antique studio and you're the finisher, it takes you years before you do the French polishing job because it is just it really takes forever to master. Apparently, the French, that was their thing. Furniture was made in England and for French to be finished. So that's kind of they perfected this. And you'll see. If I had an French shellac in 15 minutes, you get a ring on. Shellac is very fragile, so you really want to protect your shellac. And here you go. So now, if you have a dent to your shellac, the repair here are burn-in sticks. If you've seen these are vertices, and this is just shellac, and you need to, we can pass this around to see it. This is the hardest repair to make compound. You need a burn-in stick, which looks like kind of like a screwdriver. You see that? And what you would do is, if I had a gouge here, a little nick, I would get my matching color, and I would kind of take my heated burn-in stick, burn-in tool, and I have to melt the proper stick right into the mold. And then you have to sand it so carefully. And you will probably damage the whole area around it. And then you have to bring it down to your surface, and then maybe you can bring tile and the wax. But it is the hardest finish to repair. So that's why you want to protect it.
You said wax there.
Mm-hmm.
Why would, if you said wax, it also won't give the highest sheen?
Well, you can buff it, just regular pieces that are all buffed. You will have a sheen. You will have sheen it. I mean, your front polish is still showing through. Your wax is really protecting it. So, we work those pieces out of you really need to wax your shellac. It won't take down your shine that much.
You're not opposed to wax.
One or two. Yeah. The more wax you put on, the more sheen you'll get. So maybe I would do 2 coats of wax on that shellac. Shellac is the most important thing to have wax on that.
You put a clear wax on it?
You can, right. If I was very happy with this color, and this is exactly what I wanted, I would go with the neutral wax. Neutral. Because clear again has a little bit of color in it. If this still wasn't what I needed, I could use a mahogany, and I'll show you. I can use a mahogany wax, and that will just impart a little more warmth. This is a Victorian mahogany, which is a little more red. And again, on the wall, it's a little different, but there's also Georgian mahogany, which is very brown. I probably would not use a colored wax on top of the shellac because I've chosen my shellac color carefully. Like either I've gone with the garnet or I've probably gone with this color. So, okay.
Is there a way to strip shellac off and just do it up?
Alcohol dissolves shellac. And with wax, no spirits. If I have wax all over something, I can take it as a neutral wax